Hi guys, sorry to interrupt your viewing, but please subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thank you.
It started on a Thursday, the kind where the air feels heavier than it should, like it knows something you don't. I had just come back from a long shift at the shop, 12 hours on my feet, mostly dealing with customers who talk to women like we're decorative plants instead of certified mechanics. My hands were still stained with grease and the kind of tired that seeps into your spine. But even through all that exhaustion, I still had a little flicker of joy in my chest because Thursday meant I could ride. I'd parked my bike right in front of the garage that morning, wiped it down with a clean rag, topped off the oil, and kissed the tank like it was a living thing. Because to me it was. That old Kawasaki Vulcan wasn't just a ride. It was my therapy, my rebellion, my escape. It wasn't new or shiny, but I'd rebuilt it bolt by bolt, weekend by weekend, using parts one bought off Craigslist and eBay. I'd poured my heart into that machine, and every time I rode it down Route 30, wind slicing through my jacket, it felt like I was finally free of all the crap that clung to me from childhood. So imagine my face when I walked around the corner and saw it, my bike, laid out like a dying animal in the driveway. The front wheel was bent inwards like a twisted ankle, one of the side mirrors was gone completely, and the tank had a deep gash across the paint, like someone had keyed it with a knife and then run over it for good measure. I froze. For a second, my brain just refused to register what I was seeing. I blinked hard, once, then again. And then I saw him. Matt. My younger brother. Tossing the keys in the air and catching them like it was a goddamn baseball. Sheesh, chill, he said, laughing like we were still 12 and this was all part of some prank. They'll just buy you another one. And that was it. That was the sentence. The words that took every dusty resentment I had shoved in the closet of my memory and blew the damn door off its hinges. They'll just buy you another one. Like I hadn't spent 4 months saving up for that thing. Like I hadn't worked double shifts at Jansen's Auto, getting elbow deep in engine sludge, just to scrape together enough for that broken down heap of metal that I brought back to life with my own 2 hands. I paid $800 for that bike. Took me 4 months, at $20 an hour, working 5 hours a week. And I didn't spend a dime on anything else the whole time. No takeout. No drinks with friends. Just parts, tools, and late nights in the garage while everyone else was out living their damn lives. So no, they didn't buy it. I did. But he wouldn't know that because Matt's never had to earn a damn thing in his life. He looked at me, still grinning like an idiot, expecting what? A punch? A scream? Tears? Maybe. I'd given him those reactions before. But not this time. Not after everything. I didn't say a word. I walked past him, straight into the house, and grabbed the repair estimate I'd tucked into my laptop case weeks ago, just in case. It had everything on it. Parts, labor, paint, tuning, diagnostics. 2 pages worth of my future gone in one joyride. I walked back out, still silent, and pulled out my phone. I took a photo of the bike, then another of the keys still dangling from Matt's stupid fingers. He was saying something, probably another joke, but I wasn't listening. I opened a new text thread to Dad, attached the pictures, and typed, "Attached is the invoice for the damage Matt caused. Payment expected by Friday." No discussion. And I hit send. That was it. No yelling. No crying. No begging someone to see the difference between fair and familiar. Just facts. Matt's face shifted the moment his name came up on my screen. Like he didn't expect me to actually do something about it. That smile of his, the one he wore every time he got away with something, which was often started to twitch at the edges. Not quite gone, but cracking. Like maybe, just maybe, the game had changed. I turned back toward the garage, leaving him standing there in the driveway with that stupid grin dying slow on his face. I could feel his confusion, maybe even a little fear. I think he expected me to storm off or slam a door, not treat him like a problem to be solved with paperwork and deadlines. Let him stew. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. And being done is a hell of a lot more dangerous. The silence between us lasted all night. And I liked it that way. The phone didn't ring until the next morning, which already told me everything I needed to know. Not a single text from Matt. No apology, not even a lazy "my bad." Just silence. Like maybe if he ignored it long enough, I'd just let it go like I always did. But that morning, while I was pouring burnt coffee into a chipped mug and watching the rain smear the windows, my phone finally lit up. It wasn't him, of course. It was Dad. The name still showed up on my screen as Dad, home base, a leftover label from when I was in college, and thought those late-night calls were lifelines. I should have changed it years ago. I let it ring twice before I picked up, not because I was playing games, but because I needed those 2 seconds to decide how much of myself I was willing to leak out this early in the day. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, voice calm and measured, the way he always sounded when he was about to ask me to do something I didn't want to do. "Listen, I got your message." That was it. Not "how are you?" Not "what happened?" Just a bland little package of words designed to keep things tidy. I didn't speak. I let him sit in that pause until he cleared his throat and added, "Let's not make a big deal out of this." There it was. The phrase. The goddamn slogan of my entire childhood. Let's not make a big deal. Let's not rock the boat. Let's all just smile like a Christmas card and pretend fairness isn't something you're supposed to feel in your bones. A memory hit me like a flashbang. I was 12, standing in the kitchen with a broken plate in my hands. Not even a nice plate, just one of those cheap ones from Walmart. I dropped it on accident, slipped out of my wet fingers while I was doing dishes because Matt had bailed again, and the chore list always ended up in my lap. Dad had been furious. Not yelling, but that low, disappointed tone that felt worse. He'd cut my allowance for 3 months. Said I needed to learn respect for the things we pay for. Fast forward 5 years. Matt crashed Mom's car into a light pole after sneaking out to meet some girl he wouldn't even name. They gave him a talking to for about 15 minutes. 1 week later, he had a newer, shinier car in the driveway and a pat on the back for being honest about his mistake. But yeah, sure, let's not make a big deal. "I'm not making anything," I said, voice calm as stone. I sent the invoice. "I expect reimbursement by Friday." He sighed, loud, like I was the one causing tension. "Look," he said, "he's just a kid. He didn't mean to wreck it. Maybe you could try talking to him instead of." "I'm not interested in talking," I cut in before he could finish whatever condescending wisdom he had loaded. "I want the cost of damages covered. Period." There was a brief silence, long enough for me to hear something in the background. Matt's voice. Muffled, but clear enough to make out what he said. What a drama queen. It wasn't even the words. It was the tone. That smug, casual dismissiveness that came from years of never being held accountable for anything. Like my time, my labor, my money, none of it really mattered because someone would clean it all up eventually. And that someone had always been me. I didn't say another word. I just hung up. Not angrily, not abruptly. Just done. And honestly, that silence after the call ended felt more satisfying than any screaming match ever had. I spent the rest of the day trying not to let it sink in, but it was already there, pooling under my ribs. It wasn't just about the bike anymore. It was about everything. Every time I'd had to suck it up. Every time I was told to be the bigger person, to be responsible, to let things go for the sake of peace, for the sake of family, for the sake of not being difficult. But what no one ever said was that peace without fairness isn't peace. It's just quiet resentment with a nicer filter. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept flipping through my old notebooks, half looking for distraction, half hoping to just remind myself that I used to write things that didn't make me so goddamn angry. That's when I found it. An old spiral-bound journal with a torn cover, stuffed behind a box of forgotten clothes. It smelled like dust and teenage perfume. I flipped through the pages, bad poetry, unfinished thoughts, doodles in the margins, and then a folded scrap of lined paper fell out, landing on the floor beside me. I almost didn't pick it up. I was too tired for sentimentality. But curiosity is a funny thing. It was a note. Sloppy handwriting. Faded pencil. If Dad finds out I took the boat out, he'll kill me. Please don't tell. I'll owe you forever. I remembered it immediately. We were maybe 14 and 10. He'd snuck the keys to Uncle Ray's fishing boat, taken it out alone like some cocky little pirate. I had covered for him when Dad noticed it wasn't docked properly, lied to his face. Said I moved it by accident while helping Uncle with the ropes. Matt never got caught. Never even thanked me properly. I forgot the whole thing until now. I stared at that note for a long time, heart beating slow and hard like a drum underwater. All these years later, I'd finally remembered what he owed me. And this time, I wasn't going to forget. I held that note in my hand for what must have been at least 10 minutes without blinking, like if I stared at it long enough, it might explain something bigger than just a dumb decision from a 10-year-old boy. The paper was brittle around the edges, folded into tight quarters like it had been hidden in a hurry, and the writing was all jagged and uneven like he was scared even while writing it. I could see the little panic in his words, especially that last line, "I'll owe you forever." There was a part of me that wanted to laugh, because back then I probably believed him. I probably thought that's how siblings worked, that you held each other's secrets, and then somewhere down the road, they'd hold yours. But I didn't have secrets. I had responsibility. I had expectations. Matt had excuses and backup plans. The memory came back with more clarity than I expected. It was a hot summer afternoon. Dad had just come back from the marina, cursing about how the boat's lines were loose and someone had clearly moved it. I remember standing there, feeling the sun on my back and the weight of that choice in my chest. Matt had begged me not to say anything, his eyes wide and voice cracking like he already knew he'd screwed up. And so I lied, smooth and quick, told Dad I had moved it trying to help Ray tie up after fishing. It worked. No punishment. Just a grunt from Dad and a warning to be more careful next time. That was it. That lie was buried so deep I forgot it existed. Until now. Until the universe decided to dig it back up and hand it to me like a loaded weapon wrapped in old notebook paper. I pulled out my phone, snapped a picture of the note, then scanned it clean with a document app. No filters, no edits. Just the raw truth in his own handwriting. I opened my email and typed out a new message. No greeting. No explanation. Just 2 words in the subject line. Still owe me. Then I attached the photo and hit send. I didn't send it to Matt. That would have been too easy. I sent it to Dad. About an hour later, my phone buzzed. A message from him. Just a short one. I'll talk to Matt. That was all. No mention of the money. No acknowledgement of the damage. No apology for raising a son who thought wrecking someone else's property was funny. Just a vague promise of a conversation that I knew would end in absolutely nothing. I could feel it bubbling under my skin, that slow burn of fury that wasn't loud but had sharp, surgical edges. I had spent years staying calm. Years avoiding confrontation. Years thinking if I just acted like the good daughter, the mature one, someone would eventually notice the imbalance. But no one noticed. Or maybe they did, and they just didn't care. So I opened Instagram. I took a clean shot of the wrecked bike, angled just right so you could see the twisted wheel and cracked paint. Then I added the caption, straight from the place behind my ribs where the bitterness lived. When your brother totals your stuff, and your dad sends you a lecture instead of cash. I hit post. It didn't take long. Within minutes, my cousin Brittany liked it with a fire emoji. My friend Jody messaged me a string of question marks followed by "WTF happened?" My uncle from Arizona commented, "You okay?" But most interesting was the group chat titled Family Circle, the one that only lights up when there's a birthday, a holiday, or someone's kid graduates from something. That chat went from silent to blazing in less than 5 minutes. First, it was my aunt asking if everything was all right. Then someone posted the photo again and asked if that was Matt's doing. Then came the typing bubbles from Mom. She didn't write in the group. No, she messaged me privately. Short and direct. Take that post down. Your dad is furious. I stared at the message for a moment, just breathing, just letting it settle in how predictable it all was. Not furious at Matt. Not furious that something I loved was broken. Not furious that his daughter had been disrespected and dismissed. No. He was furious that the curtain had been pulled back. That someone might see the mess they'd always kept under the rug. I typed back without hesitation. He should be. I watched the screen. No response. Just the faint feeling of a domino starting to tip over. I put the phone down and looked at the bike again through the window. It looked even worse in the rain, like it was sagging under the weight of everything that had happened. And yet, for the first time, I didn't feel helpless. I felt ready. Because the thing about leverage is, once you have it, you never go back. Once you realize you can flip the script, there's no reason to keep playing the same role. I wasn't going to be the quiet one anymore. I wasn't going to swallow the silence just to keep everyone comfortable. I had the note. I had the story. And I had nothing left to lose. They invited me for lunch like it was something normal, like we hadn't spent the last week setting fire to decades of silence, with a single photo and a caption that pulled back the mask of our perfect little family illusion. Mom's message came through in the early morning hours, short and passive like always. Can you come over? We want to talk this out over lunch. No apology, no acknowledgement of what had been said or done, just a vague plea for civility disguised as a polite invitation. I almost ignored it. Almost. But I didn't. Instead, I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the manila folder I'd been building for years without realizing it. Not out of spite, not at first. Just a habit I developed over time, like a squirrel burying acorns for a winter that always felt just around the corner. I slid in a few more pieces of paper that morning, fresh off the printer. Not just the invoice for the wrecked bike. That was already old news. No, I was bringing a full exhibit list. Medical bills from 3 years ago, when my health insurance refused to cover the full cost of my gallbladder surgery and I was left scraping together over $4,000 in hospital fees while recovering alone in a cold apartment. I remembered calling home once, voice groggy and half hoping for some kind of support. I got a voicemail and a follow-up text that read, "Tough break. Let us know if you need anything." But I didn't ask again, because I already knew. Then there was the tuition letter from my last year at state college, the one where I had to take out a private loan at a criminal interest rate just to cover the final semester. That one really stung. I had called home, my voice shaking while I tried not to cry, and Dad said, "We're still paying off Matt's SAT tutoring and his car. We just can't help right now." And I said okay. I always said okay. I tossed in a couple of old birthday cards for flair. One from when I turned 16, signed in Dad's handwriting with $20 tucked inside. Then I added the photo I had taken of Matt on his 16th birthday, unwrapping a brand new gaming console in the middle of the living room while everyone clapped like he'd just cured cancer. I put it all in the folder and zipped it into my bag. No drama. No outbursts. Just facts, clear, sharp, and long overdue. When I walked into the kitchen, it felt like stepping into a stage set. Everything was arranged too perfectly. The table laid out with neatly folded napkins, Mom's best dishes, a pitcher of lemonade sweating gently on a woven coaster. Dad was already sitting at the head of the table like he hadn't spent the last week pretending I was overreacting. Matt was there too, of course, wearing that same tired smirk that had started to crack ever since I posted that photo. His shoulders looked stiffer than usual. "Glad you came," Dad said, trying to keep it light, like this was just another Sunday. "I brought dessert," I said, laying the folder on the table. "It's not sweet, but it's full of stuff you forgot." They didn't open it. Not yet. Just stared at it like it might explode. "What is that?" Mom asked, voice thin. "Receipts," I said, sitting down slowly. Literal and metaphorical. I watched as Matt rolled his eyes and Dad reached for the lemonade like he needed to hydrate before we got into it. Mom was frozen in place. "I thought we could talk this out," she said. "Great," I replied. Let's talk. I opened the folder and slid out the medical bills first. 3 years ago, I asked for help with this, I said, tapping the paper. I got silence. Then the tuition letter. This one cost me 7 years of interest payments. Then the birthday card. That's what I got for turning 16. Matt got an Xbox and a pizza party with 15 people. Mom's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Her fingers gripped the edge of the tablecloth like she was holding on through turbulence. Dad's face was hard, unreadable. Matt looked like he wanted to disappear. This isn't the time, Dad said, voice clipped. No, I said, staring him down. You had 20 years. Then I pulled out the note, the one from the journal. I held it in the air just long enough for them to recognize it, then placed it gently on the table like a card in a poker game that changes everything. You want this to end? I asked, voice quiet. Then sell Matt's car. Reimburse me for the bike and the medical bills. Or I go public. With everything, including the boat story. For a second, nobody moved. It was like time stretched itself thin between each breath, daring someone to be the first to blink. Matt broke first. Are you insane? He hissed, panic seeping into his voice. You can't be serious. I'm very serious, I said. And I've got the kind of patience that comes from being ignored for 20 damn years. Dad stood up slowly, his face red and tight like a balloon about to burst. But he didn't say anything, not a single word. Just stood there with his jaw clenched and his hands balled into fists. Mom finally whispered something under her breath, barely audible. He doesn't have the money. And just like that, the air went dead. I looked at her. Really looked at her. She was smaller than I remembered, thinner, like holding the weight of this family had worn her down more than she would ever admit. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. It didn't come in the form I expected. There was no dramatic phone call, no flurry of notifications, no surprise deposit pinging in my bank account like some long-awaited redemption arc. What came instead was a knock, soft, hesitant, almost embarrassed, and it came late, just as the sun was slipping behind the buildings across the street, and the kitchen light started casting shadows against the fridge like they were trying to sneak away quietly. I opened the door and there he was, standing like someone who didn't quite belong to the body he was used to living in. Matt didn't have the swagger this time. No sideways grin, no lazy posture that dared you to challenge him. He looked older than he should have. Not in the face exactly, but in the way he stood, like the floor might not hold him up this time. He didn't even wait for an invitation, just lifted a white envelope in his hand and extended it toward me like a peace offering. I know it's not everything, he said, the words falling out fast and without decoration. But it's what I've got right now. I took the envelope, opened it slowly, and saw the check. Not the full amount, not close. But half. Handwritten. Signed. Real. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he said before I could speak. Look, you were right. I was a spoiled prick. I didn't see it. Maybe I didn't want to. But you were right. The words landed hard, not because they were dramatic or emotional, but because they weren't. He wasn't performing, and that was the thing that made it stick. It wasn't a script. It was surrender. I leaned against the doorframe, check still in hand, watching him try to make sense of his own sentence. I spent the last few nights trying to figure out when it all started, he continued. When I became this person who could wreck someone's stuff and think it didn't matter. And I kept coming back to the same thing. He paused, then looked straight at me. It wasn't just me. I didn't get here on my own. I nodded, more to myself than to him, because we both already knew that. But, he said, shifting his weight and pulling a folded paper from his back pocket, I think you should ask Mom about the college fund. Those words froze the air between us. I narrowed my eyes, instantly defensive, already cataloging what he might be trying to deflect from. But he didn't look defensive. He looked tired. What college fund? I asked, my voice flat and sharp. He shrugged, turning like he was ready to leave, like this conversation was a grenade and he'd already pulled the pin. Just ask her, he said, walking back down the hall. I watched him disappear into the elevator, still holding the check, still unsure if this was some elaborate guilt maneuver or something more. I didn't wait long. The call to Mom was short, clipped, direct. She picked up on the third ring, her voice just a little too chipper, like she knew why I was calling, but was praying I wouldn't ask. Was there ever a college fund for me? I asked, skipping every pleasantry. There was a pause. Not long, but full. Then she sighed, that long, exhausted sound I knew too well. There was, she said softly. Not much. But yes. I blinked, staring at the fridge like it had answers etched in magnets. What happened to it? Her voice cracked, just slightly. Your father, he thought Matt needed it more. It wasn't a sentence. It was a confession. There was no rage this time. No scream or tears. Just silence, thick and still, like the world itself had gone flat for a second. I didn't thank her. I didn't hang up with any final words. I just let the quiet hang between us and hit end. I sat there for a long time, the check still on the table, my phone screen glowing with the end call timestamp, and all I could think was, I had spent years trying to be fair in a system that was never designed to be fair to me. I thought I wanted revenge. But what I really wanted was the truth. And now I had it. Just not all of it. There are pieces I'll never get back. Years I won't relive. Conversations that never happened. Apologies that were never written. But the one thing I could do, maybe the only thing that would matter now, was to finish what I started. So I dragged the old bike out from the corner of the garage, laid out the tools one by one like a ritual, and started to rebuild. Alone. Not because no one offered, but because I didn't ask. I didn't need help. I needed control. I needed to feel each screw tighten under my hand, each part slide back into place, not as it was before, but better, stronger, mine. And when it was done, when the engine purred under my palms like it had forgiven me for all the neglect, I took it out on the road. The same road where Matt had crashed it, the same stretch of pavement where so many things had fallen apart. I didn't ride fast. I rode steady. I rode like someone who had finally stopped waiting for permission to move forward. And when I passed the place where the gravel had once ripped through metal and paint, I smiled, not because I'd won, not because I'd gotten even, but because now they all knew. They knew I never needed their protection. I only needed them to see me.